came forth and has got something to say about what exactly happened, even as the Election Observers Group, ELOG, gives contrasting details compared to the IEBC on just how the elections were conducted. So these are some of the conversations we'll be having later on in studio, so feel free to talk to us on our streaming platforms. I'm Cynthia Nanjala. Let's get this show started. Unfortunately, not good news. At least 8 people, including a minor, were killed on Saturday night following a fatal road accident at Bwarani area near Ekerenyo along the Kericho-Nyamira road. Police said the accident involved a passenger shuttle and a trailer. The shuttle was ferrying passengers from Nairobi when the crash occurred. 5 people died on the spot, while 3 others later succumbed to their injuries while receiving treatment in hospital. The bodies of the victims were moved to the mortuary pending identification and other procedures. 8 other passengers who survived the crash are currently receiving treatment at the county's referral hospital. The incident was among several road crashes reported across the country on Saturday, in which more than 20 people lost their lives. Police said victims included passengers, pedestrians, motorcyclists, pillion passengers and drivers. At least 36 others were injured in separate accidents and were taken to various hospitals.
5 are currently admitted at our ICU. 2 are in our accident and emergency department. Our doctors really tried very hard to save lives. We really thank them for their effort. As a hospital, we have the capacity to manage the patients, but there are 2 who require neurosurgical intervention. We are referring them for further management.
As our government, we stand with the families who have lost their loved ones and whose members are admitted at the hospital. I form a small committee which will be liaising with the affected families so that we see how we can work together.
Tulikuwa tunaweka matumaini, tunangojelea shida hata sisi tutafurahia. Alisafiri kwenda Nairobi kusalimia makazini zake. Alikuwa anateremka jana, ilikuwa Jumamosi, kuja kusalimia mama yake nyumbani. Alifika Kerenyo kupanda juu, akapata accident. Niko na huzuni kubwa sana.
Well, those are very worrying statistics, especially heading into, the festive season, which is already in top gear. And we hope that drivers will be very careful on the roads and to just ensure that they, move their transporters or at least their clients or passengers from one location to the other safely. I mean, 20 people dead in one weekend across various counties is such a huge number. Elsewhere, the Ministry of Health has urged Kenyans to prioritize road safety and avoid drunk driving during the festive season, warning of a spike in road crashes and alcohol-related injuries recorded in hospitals during this period. Speaking at the Omogisi or Nairobi Kisii Endia Thanksgiving Sabbath, the Public Health Principal Secretary cautioned that rising alcohol abuse during festivities is a major contributor to domestic violence and preventable injuries. She called on members of the public to drink responsibly if they choose to and consume alcohol, and to be mindful of the consequences of excessive drinking. The PS also warned of potential disease outbreaks associated with large festive gatherings, urging Kenyans to observe food and water hygiene, maintain personal cleanliness, and make informed sexual choices. She challenged churches and the clergy to take a more active role in guiding communities towards healthy and responsible lifestyles.
Krismasi ni wakati wa furaha, na Krismasi ni wakati wa kusafiri, kula pamoja na kusherekea. Lakini pia ni kipindi ambacho wagonjwa huongezeka hospitalini kwa sababu ya saa zingine ajali na magonjwa yanayowezeka kirahisi. Nianze na hili la kwanza, usalama barabarani. Sisi wote tukisafiri, aswa sisi watu wametoka kule Kisii. Wakati wa sikukuu watu wengi husafiri na mara nyingi tunakuwa na haraka. Ndugu zangu, maisha hayana spare part. Ukiwa dereva, tafadhali usikimbize gari. Funga mkanda. Pumzika ukiwa umechoka. Usipite ovyo. Na la muhimu kabisa, kama umekunywa pombe usiendeshe gari hata kidogo. Na hata pikipiki vaa helmet. Usibebe abiria kwa ziada na usiende kwa mwenda wa hatari. Krismasi iwe ya kurudi nyumbani salama, sio ya kuenda mochari.
Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Public Service, Human Capital and Development, Geoffrey Ruku, has launched a scathing attack on Democracy for Citizens Party leader Rigathi Gachagua, accusing him of spreading tribal politics. Speaking at a church service, Ruku criticized Gachagua for referring to himself as the kingpin of the Mount Kenya region, saying that the people of Mbeere North had proven him wrong. Ruku emphasized that political leadership should prioritize unity and national development rather than promoting division based on ethnicity. He reiterated his commitment and that of his supporters to continue backing the current government, asserting that the administration remains focused on delivering services and development to all Kenyans.
Na mtu asije kutuambia ati yeye ndiye kingpin wa mlima. Si ndio alikuwa anasema kura ya Mbeere ni yake? Watu wa Mbeere walimwambia mchana. Walimwambia peupe. No. Kwenda kabisa. Si ndio hiyo? We must liberate ourselves as a people of Mount Kenya East. And the time of liberating ourselves is now. Is now. Because Rigiji, he has organized hatred against a government which is helping us ati tumufuate. Hatutaitikia. Mwanamwambia hii? Tuko na serikali na tuko na rais ambao anatusikiza. Kama wewe Rigiji na watu yako mnataka ukaa nje ya serikali, mkae nje ya serikali. Lakini sisi watu wa Meru, wa Embu, wa Tharaka Nithi, tutakaa ndani ya hii serikali na tutakaa ndani ya serikali ambayo inakuja. Mwanamwambia hii? It can't be at the serikali imeharibika when we have a deputy president who is at Peter way to presidency. Our neighbor from Tharaka. Sasa hii ndio serikali imeharibika. We supported Kenyatta 1. We supported Kibaki. We supported Kenyatta 2. Na tu complain. Na wakati tuko na mmoja wetu, our neighbor, our brother, our son, who 2032 tutasukuma yeye akuwe rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, ndio watu wengine na hapa wanatuambia ati tutoke ndani ya serikali, serikali ni mbaya, William Ruto ni mbaya. Tunawaambia hata kama ni mlima, tutaikata mara mbili, tupate title deed yetu ya Mount Kenya East na wao wakae na title deed yao ya Mount Kenya West. Mnanielewa? Yes. It can't be. Mimi nilikuwa mtoto, nilikuwa tunasoma Biblia ya Kikuyu. Mimi sio Mkikuyu. Mimi nilikuwa mtoto, nilikuwa nafundishwa mother tongue ya Kikuyu. Mimi sio Mkikuyu. Those are historical injustices ambazo zimefanywa watu ya Meru, watu ya Embu, watu ya Tharaka Nithi na wa Kikuyu. I will say that mchana peupe. Mnanielewa jamani?
We have a deputy president who is a member of our region with our professor Idure Kitiki, ambaye tunamwambia yeye ni fire. Ni fire, si fire.
The Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale has launched a scathing attack on former Interior Cabinet Secretary and presidential aspirant Dr. Fred Matiang'i, accusing him of impunity, corruption and overseeing extrajudicial killings during his tenure in government. Speaking at Narok Muslim Academy during a public event, Duale claimed that Matiang'i, who serves as the Jubilee Party deputy leader, lacks the moral authority to criticize President William Ruto. He alleged that under the previous administration, Matiang'i presided over widespread abuse of power, undermining democratic institutions and governance standards. Duale dismissed Matiang'i's political ambitions, insisting that leadership must be grounded in integrity, accountability, and respect for democratic processes. He further cautioned opposition leaders against what he described as persistent attacks on the Kenya Kwanza administration, highlighting the government's achievements in delivering tangible development for its citizens.
Ukiangalia uchumi, watu wanachukua tu jina Ruto. Lakini ile miaka 3 ile barabara, ile miaka 3 ile kazi Rais Ruto amefanya, maraisi wa Kenya wote, mimi nimefanya kazi na Mheshimiwa Kibaki, nikafanya kazi na Mheshimiwa Uhuru karibu sana. Sasa mimi nafanya na Mheshimiwa Ruto. Miaka 3 ile kazi amefanya, hakuna rais alifanya. Na ni ajabu, Rigiji alikuwa one term MP, nilikuwa leader majority yake. Nikimwambia kaa chini, anakaa chini. Speaker Muturi tulikuwa naye bunge. Peter Munya tulikuwa naye bunge. Huyu Matiangi alikuwa waziri, nikimuita bunge alikuwa anakimbia hivi. Sasa juzi nimeona Matiangi anaongea kwa TV. And I want to tell Fred Matiangi, hey, Fred Matiangi is the face of impunity in Kenya. Kama kuna mtu alifanya impunity Kenya is Fred Matiangi. Fred Matiangi is the face of extrajudicial killing. Aliua Waislamu na Wakenya wengi sana, na akatupa maiti yao huko Yala River, Tana River, hapa Nairobi. Alikuwa anapiga sana kifua. Fred Matiangi is the face of corruption. Alikuwa mwalimu, mwana ya mtu vile amenona. Alikuwa mwalimu university mwembamba. Alikula wakati wa President Uhuru. He is the face of corruption. Fred Matiangi is the face of nepotism. Kama kuna mtu mkabila na ametumia ofisi yake kama waziri kuandika na kufanya ukabila, ni Fred Matiangi. Na hata si mwanasiasa, hata hajui kuongea. Na akome, he should desist. And he is the last person to critique the government of William Ruto. Wale watu ameua tukisanya Kenya watajaa Uhuru Park. The people were extrajudicial killing. Yeye, na mimi siogopi, yeye, Kinoti, wa Somali pekee zaidi ya 10,000, Waislamu 30,000. Alafu Fred Matiangi anakuja kwa TV anatuambia nini? Serikali ya Ruto, sisi tunataka watu waheshimu sheria ya nchi.
All right, let's talk matters newspaper, and to just take a look at what is being headlined this morning on the pages. I have the Daily Nation and the Standard. So I'll kick it off with the Standard newspaper. Questions abound. This is following former Member of Parliament Jirongo's death, who passed away on Saturday or on Friday night. Now, according to the newspapers, shadows of doubt from the unsettling calm of the bus driver who explained a fatal crash as casually as the weather to the early claims that Cyrus Jirongo drove straight into the nose of an oncoming bus. Doubts are mounting over whether the former Lugari Member of Parliament died in a simple accident. Friends say Jirongo had over time expressed fears for his safety. They are now demanding answers about what really happened on that road. In a country where high-profile deaths in road crashes often end in inconclusive investigations, they insist this case cannot be brushed aside as routine. Now, according to George Haniri, the former Vihiga senator, he says he wonders why Jirongo was still out that Friday night, despite them having an important meeting the next day. On the other hand, Philip Kisia, former Nairobi town clerk, says Jirongo was a man of the people, an international businessman. And he says lately, Jirongo had gotten into some very good business dealings in minerals from DRC and other countries. Now, how did Jirongo end up driving towards Nairobi from Nakuru, yet he had been in Nairobi till 11 p.m. Friday night and had no plans leaving the city? Why would he have called his caretaker in Gigiri at 10 p.m. informing him he will be home in a few minutes, yet he was away from the city? Also, why would a head-on collision leave little damage to the body as seen at the scene by his friend George Haniri? And why would a driver whose bus had crushed a fellow human being remain calm as he narrated details of the accident? So questions are rising over the death of former Lugari Member of Parliament Cyrus Jirongo. And police say Jirongo's car was involved in a head-on collision with a bus. However, forensic audit report paints a picture that directly challenges the narrative. Now, if you had an opportunity to see the pictures of this car on this fateful night, it will give you a clear picture of what you should expect the damage of the human body to be. However, some of the friends say that it does not really match, and he seemed almost unscathed from the accident. So the bus driver, Titus Kamau, was briefly detained but released as investigation described as routine commenced. Kamau calmly explained that he thought it wise to sacrifice the father of 38 children as the official count this year, rather than swerve the bus, which would have killed 67 people. But the different and technical detailed account prepared by crash investigation experts who analyzed an expanded set of the scene and vehicle photographs paints a picture of a complex multi-impact event that directly challenges the official head-on narrative. Vihiga Senator George Haniri, Jirongo's best friend and one of the last people to speak to him, says there is more than meets the eye and everything will unravel after a forensic audit on Jirongo's phone, car, and autopsy. So friends, family raised questions over the death of Cyrus Jirongo, who was a key member of the cabinet during Mwai Kibaki's era. He unsuccessfully vied for the governorship of Kakamega County in 2022 after losing to Fernandez Baraza. And the man succumbed on Friday night, even as the investigations are still yet to clear what exactly happened in this particular crash. Now, to education, KJSEA, the Kenya Junior Secondary Education Assessment High Achievers torn between arts, sports, and sciences. This is after the results were released last week on Thursday, but of course, which are very, I'd say unique and critical, and has gone the ease way, exceeding expectation, that is EEs, compared to 844, where the highest scorer would get an A, and the least scorers would get an E. So sort of like vice versa. So the E's are here, and the A's are not here anymore. Now, following the release of the exams, an unexpected dilemma has emerged among some of the country's brightest learners over which pathway to pursue. Top performers qualify all three ways, including STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, social sciences, and arts and sports science, and are torn between options. Under the new system, grade 9 learners must select one main pathway, despite the curriculum's promise of nurturing holistic talent. For those scoring EE, which means exceeding expectations, and that's the highest, in academics and co-curricular areas, the choice feels limiting rather than liberating. At Accurate Schools Kayole, the director Samuel Masharia says the dilemma is already evident. Students are excelling in both academics and co-curriculars are organized, disciplined, and highly driven. This balance enhances overall well-being and improves academic performance. And so this is one of the things that we've been talking about on the morning show, on just how we can nurture learners as early as when they're in teenage years. But the big question is the dilemma would come when this is a learner who's performing brilliantly in all, but is had to force to choose a pathway rather than choose two pathways. That means you've got a learner who's brilliant in mathematics, is brilliant in technology courses, but is also brilliant in co-curriculum activities and may want to pursue both, but they've got to stick to one. So do they go the STEM way or do they go the arts and sports science way? So that is perhaps one of the things that may be the biggest dilemma. And this one will require a lot of advice from stakeholders, from schools, from career guiders on just what to do for this learner, what pathway do they take so that they do not at the end come and regret and feel they should have done something different. So come January, by date 12, these learners will be going to the schools, to senior schools. And so they'll either go to a school which offers all three courses. This means it offers pathways, it offers STEM, offers social sciences, offers arts and sports sciences, or they may go to a school that offers just two or a school that offers just one. Now this may depending on what cluster this school is at. Now the national schools fall under cluster 1. Talk about the extra county schools, cluster 2, county schools, cluster 3, sub-county schools, cluster 4. So depending on how they've performed, the decisions they made while picking schools, that will ultimately decide what school they will be going to, as well as what pathway they will be taking. So KJSEA high achievers torn between arts and sports science. KCP achievers reflect on new education shift as well. The old system relied on a single high-stakes examination and cutthroat competition. Today's framework focuses on individual performance and continuous assessment. Still on the issue of, is it merit or is it just matters academics, or is it about potential and hidden talent? So that is some of the stories on the Standard. We'll be talking a little bit later on concerning this as well with my guest in studio now. To the Daily Nation, revealed identities of Kenyans in Russian war. Names of at least 82 Kenyans lured into fighting for Russia in the war with Ukraine. Some dead, others injured, and most desperate for help to flee the war zone can now be revealed. Their distress is captured in official correspondence between the Kenyan embassy in Moscow and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, we've had conversations about this as well on this show, and the fact that some of the Kenyans were duped without their knowledge, that is, to go to a foreign country to fight a war that means nothing to them. So identities of Kenyans in Russian war has been released, with about 82 Kenyans lured into fighting. However, officials say more than 200 Kenyans may be fighting for Russia in Ukraine. Willingly? Well, that's a different question. It is not, because according to some of the statements, you're lured, you're told you're going for a job to the hotel industry, but you get to the airport, your passport is confiscated, your documents are confiscated, you're taken to a military camp, you're signing documents in Russia, language you don't understand. So it all symbols to, a scheme that is in place to dupe Kenyans as well as to take money from these Kenyans. So identities of Kenyans in Russia war. As the Kenyans were reportedly lured by offers of legitimate employment abroad. And that is a story that has been done on the Daily Nation. IEBC to use ID and passports data for voter listing targets. The Commission says the census data it has been using includes individuals who are ineligible to register as voters. There's going to be an audit of the voter register, to just eliminate double registration. There are persons that unfortunately passed away. They also need to be taken off the voter register, even as the continuous voter registration is still on until about 6 months to the general election. So how Jirongo's NSSF scams collapsed post-bank credit. 50 days after President Moi was sworn in for another term, the powerful youth of Fokanu 92 chairman Cyrus Jirongo walked into the NSSF headquarters to force through a deal. It was a Tuesday, February 23rd, 1993. So various aspects of mourning this man and just what he's been remembered for. So these are some of the stories on top of the Daily Nation. We'd love to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be having our guest in studio just to take stock of the by-elections. Like I've told you, conflicting reports, contrasting reports between the ELOG, Election Observers Group, and the IEBC on what exactly went down during the by-election. So we've got Malava constituency aspirant who finished 4th, George Ngaira, will be joining me on set. He's got that first-hand account of just how the ground was in Malava and what he feels went right or went wrong during these particular by-elections, as well as Matthew Wasonga, the Secretary General of the Grand Movement Political Party. So we'll be having that conversation as well as other matters around the state of the nation. Stay with us, don't go too far.